I'm going to try to keep this lively, and ultimately, I really want to try to combine and build off of what Gerry said, what Peter was saying, what I'm hearing. Seems to be something that we're thinking about and talking about. So what I'm going to be kind of trying to blend here is how tech can help your business and your mind, but the real emphasis, just like Peter was saying, is on the can there. And I want to talk a little bit about how it can, but also the traps that we end up falling into with some of this. And I'll share some of my story along the way as well. There was a lot when Gerry was talking this morning that really just kind of gave me some flashbacks to some of my own experiences, and even just the wisdom coming from Peter in that little like impromptu, everyone was just putting him in the firing line there, really brings together this concept of needing to stay relevant with what's going on, but not getting so caught up in trying to predict every possible thing that we can't control, which is often the bigger list than the things that we can, and that's the balance. So my talk here today is really going to be about balance. And there's going to be some interaction along the way, so hopefully you still have some energy going for it. And what we're going to be talking about is, again, how technology is going to help us and how it can hinder us. So let's see if this is going to work. Speaking of technology and hindering, I'll tell you a little bit. What started really kind of shifting things for me and why I talk so much about balance is at one point in my life, I used to meditate for up to 8 hours a day. I lived monastically. This was a piece of my life. And what I quickly learned was that lifestyle does not exist in this society. There's no way I could have a business. There's no way I could manage myself. There's no way that I don't even think live in North America. So finding balance has been a huge portion of my journey and what I try to help people with now. So I'm going to start with a once upon a time story. So once upon a time, hearkening back to the Bobcat and everything, that was really reminiscence. I grew up in a construction household. My grandfather did construction. My dad did construction. I drove my first Bobcat when I was 12 years old. I don't know. Things are different now. I laid my first tile floor when I was 8. So that was the household that we grew up in, my brother and I. And it was very much so about just putting in a hard day's work. And that meant something. That meant that you were successful in some way, shape, or form. And then the time came for me to go off to post-secondary. And my family was excited about me being the first one to go off to college or university, but I had no idea what I was going to do. So I took a stack of applications, put it on my dad's desk, and said, "You just choose for me." And Dad, being pragmatic, said, "Well, it'd be handy to have an architect in the family, so go do that." So sure enough, I went to school for architecture. I graduated, I got a job. And at the age of 22 years old, I was going on multi-million-dollar construction sites, started project managing, and I was flying all across Canada, overseeing these sites. I was telling people who were working longer than I had been alive why they could not have their $2 million holdback because they used BX cable instead of putting it in conduit like the specifications said. Like, talk about the imposter syndrome. I don't know if you noticed, I am not a tall person. These people also tend to be like very intimidating to me. So I'd stand there and my voice is still cracking and I'm looking up like, "Sorry, sir." This was this experience I was having. Not to mention, I'm trying to climb up some sort of a corporate ladder, which I don't know where it's supposed to go to. Nobody ever tells you that portion when they tell you that you need to climb towards something. And what started happening is I started noticing some aging, or what I thought is aging, because we all know 25 is tough, right? So I would notice that by the end of the week on Friday, I felt pretty tired. But that's what's supposed to happen. It's Friday. That's why we have weekends. So I would, rest a little bit on the weekend, and I would notice that I would feel better-ish on Monday. So I was like, okay, this is happening. I'm restoring a little bit here, and time went on. I would start to notice I kind of didn't want to get out of bed anymore. More expectations were put on me. I started putting in like over 80 hours a week. I was sleeping on the boardroom table. I was just trying to achieve I don't know what. And the problem was, I often compared that Friday to that Monday and that restoration that I had there, but I was not comparing the Monday to the Monday to the Monday. And when I zoomed out, it kind of looked a little bit something like this. Now, this is quite truncated, but after a while, I started noticing a bit of a trend. And I call this line the path of no return. Not because if you start going down it, there's no return and you should just give up. because I was putting in more and more energy and I was getting no actual returns from that energy. When we start going down on this trend and we're heading towards the road to burnout, the more we put in, we actually don't get more out of it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the whys of that. And honestly, Gerry talked about it. You know, there's a lot of reasons that happening with what you call the thinking mind and the emotional mind or brain, the things that happen inside of us that lead to this trend not happening. But what do we do? The question was asked at the back table. You know, if I start to feel stress in my body, or if I'm not aware if it's stress, like what do I do to turn that around? How do I identify this thing? Oftentimes, it takes some pretty radical stuff because let's face it, this is a question a lot of us are asking. There was a study done in 2023 that showed that 35% of Canadians in the workforce are on the brink of burnout. Now, in 2025, do we think that that number went up or down? Give me thumbs up if you think up, down if you think down. Okay. Spoilers. It went up. It went up, and that's not that long ago. And so it's great that we're starting to have these conversations and people are asking the questions, but what do we do when we start to notice it? Well, this is the interesting thing about burnout, right? If you have coal still left in your fire, you can add some fuel, add some oxygen, you can blow on those coals, and you can rekindle that fire. But if that fire goes completely out and you're left having to rub sticks together to get it started again, it's really difficult. And then we ask the questions like, well, what is the fuel? What is also, by the way, speaking of AI, I used a lot of AI in this presentation. You're going to see some things. So how do we do that? How do we restart it if the fire goes out completely? Well, for me, I did something somewhat radical. So I sold all of my possessions. I quit that job. I sold all of my possessions, and everything that I owned is on my person there. That was it. I decided I had to get out of North America. Take that, mom and dad. So I sold everything and I left. And the most expensive thing that I had is actually, it's hard to see there, but it's a camera that I bought. With the money I had left over, I'm like, oh man, I've always loved the idea of these photographers, right? That go in to these remote places and they capture these cool photos, and they were my heroes. I always also thought about, you know, like on those police shows, how you see everyone's like sprinting at high pace, but the cameraman's somehow keeping up with everybody. Like cameramen are superheroes. So I wanted to be like those cameramen. Yeah, you're thinking about that now. You didn't think about that before. How did they get the footage? Anyway. So I bought this expensive camera. There's like $3,000 worth of gear there. And I remember when I bought it, I unboxed it, and it had a user manual that was like this thick. Okay, now some of you work very heavily in technology, but I think everyone here is used to receiving some sort of user manual. How many of us read those? Yeah, that's what I expected. You know, maybe you kind of give it a little flick through, something like that. But for me, I took a look at that. I chucked it. It was certainly not going to take up space in my backpack. So I got rid of it, and I was a little disheartened at first. I'm like, oh man, this seems really complicated. If it needs an owner manual that thick, what am I going to do with this? And then I found, I don't know, how many people here have used like a DSLR, like the cameras we have set up here? A couple people. On the top, there's a little green A button. And that is the auto setting. And I was like, yes, I figured out that I cracked the code, all those suckers that are reading those owner manuals, and I just found the auto button that none of them found. So I put on the auto setting and I set off on my adventure. And one of the first places I went in apparently a circuitous route was I made AI, right? I made my way down to Australia. And I was really excited because I love the idea when you go somewhere and like the smells are different and the animals are different. You really feel like you're in a new place. So one of the places I went to right off the bat is I volunteered in an animal sanctuary. And here's a photo from there. That's a little baby kangaroo feeding it a carrot. Also notice, I had hair. It's thinning already, but it was still there at that time. And I met someone who changed my life when I actually was at this animal sanctuary. He was like Crocodile Dundee meets the crocodile hunter all together. He was a ranger from Kakadu National Park, which if you know Australia, that's like the very top of Australia. But that part of Australia gets covered in water at different times of the year. So the rest of the time, he goes and he visits the country. And so I'm like, okay, I have this camera. I want to see this country. Where should I go? And he was really useful. He was See if I can channel him. He's like, yeah, mate. Yeah, right. Crikey, beauty. I grew up in the time of the crocodile hunter. This is how all Australians talk. So, yeah, mate, what you want to do is you want to find your way. Get down to the red centre of Australia, right? You're going to buy a car, something like that. You're going to get yourself to the red centre, and if you get it right at the right time, the sun's going to hit that Ayers Rock. Maybe you might know it. It's called Uluru. You're going to see it's going to glow this beautiful red. It's going to be beautiful. You got to get there, mate. You're going to love it. So I was like, sweet, this is what I have to do. I bought this beater of a car with some money I scrounged up, and I drove out. It took me a week to get there. I drove to the center of Australia, and I passed, by the way, 21 abandoned and broken down cars on the way to the red center because it's cheaper to just leave the car than try to tow it anywhere at that point in time. So I took my life in my hands to try to get this amazing photo of Ayers Rock. And I got there, and friends, you're going to be so excited about this. I got there, and I got that amazing photo. And I didn't understand. I took a few of them, and I'm looking at my camera. There's some other photographers there too, and I'm just kind of doing one of these, like looking over their show. I'm like, I can't help but notice that your photos are better than mine. And, a couple people just kind of like scooched further away from me. But this one guy was indulging me a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I noticed that too. And I said, okay, so why? I bought the thing with the buttons and the dials and everything. Why is your picture so much better than mine? And he looked over and he's like, well, it's because you have it on the auto setting. And he started talking mumbo jumbo, talking, you got to adjust the shutter and the aperture, and you got to do this and this. And I don't care about those things. Just make mine do what yours does. So he rolled his eyes. He took my camera. He adjusted some dials and everything. He's like, here, okay, fine, just take this. And so then I set it up again, and I'm like, okay, I'm excited. I took the picture, and all of a sudden, I had my moment, right? I got that photo that I wanted. It's even better, this lighting and everything. Trust me, it's really good photo. But I finally got that experience. And yet, although I got the photo I wanted, that moment was kind of taken from me. Because I realized that I had this technology, this amazing technology that can do amazing things. And I knew I was going to force myself to learn how to use it at this point in time. And so I made a vow to myself that I would no longer ever put my camera on the auto setting again, and I would have to learn how to actually use this technology. Now, the thing is, my photos got worse when I did that before they got better. I took it off the auto setting, and I'm getting like completely blacked out photos. I'm getting photos. Well, actually, this is one of the ones I took right after that. So this was, a parrot. I don't even know why it's gray. There was some stuff there happening with some lighting and everything, but I kept going. I played with dials. I tried to figure out different ways of getting it to work for me. And eventually, I started capturing some better photos. And I learned how to work quickly. So when these moments arose, I could capture things in the moment. I could react and respond in the moment. And I learned how to capture better lighting. And then I was able to eventually start selling these photos that I was taking. And it took everything to a whole nother level with my photography. Now, I don't know, friends, if you've noticed yet where I'm going with this. It was not about the camera. See, this idea of this amazing technology, right? Like, again, Gerry alluded to it. The mind is extremely complex. And what happens when we are younger, we can comprehend so much. And we develop certain defense mechanisms, certain habits, and certain ways of interacting with the world. And that becomes our automatic setting. Now, we can stay there, and we all know many people that just stay there. But the automatic setting is not going to help you when you get into that darker lighting. The automatic setting is not going to help you when you're trying to find yourself wanting to see things different, want to experiencing things different, want to try to really get those beautiful shots. After Australia, I did quite a bit of traveling. I ended up wanting to really dive into my different settings of my mind. I left Australia. I went to Thailand. I studied Buddhism there. I studied with some amazing monks there. I went to India and I studied yoga. One of the last places I was, and I want to share you this last photo with you. This was in the Himalayan mountains. I was staying with a village, no roads up to this. It was along the Annapurna circuit, and this was a sunrise. And I would get up in the morning and I would watch the sunrise, and I started realizing some things. As I started spending more time trying to understand the different settings of my mind, I realized that I had kind of been running away from the things that have led me to that burnout in the first place. This whole thing was exciting. This journey, this trip I was on, it was exciting. So I stopped asking the questions. I kind of lived in this place of blame. I blamed my dad for choosing architecture. I blamed those bosses that kept getting me to do more and more work. I was blaming so many other people. And what I wasn't doing was reflecting, reading those manuals, looking at the fine print, asking what defense mechanisms of mine led me to this place that I am. And so I decided to kind of jump in even further. And when I really reflected on things, I recognized that if we look at the manual of our minds, it could be broken into 3 main chapters. The 3 main chapters are when I came back to North America, by the way. I did end up studying hypnotherapy. I will not be hypnotizing anybody today. I studied hypnotherapy. I went back to school. I studied psychology, psychotherapy. I ended up, I'm actually still in university now, working towards a master's in social work. I even married a psychoanalytic psychotherapist, not for me, for all of you, so that I can come here and I can share this message with you. So I dove in pretty deeply into understanding the mind even further. And I break this manual into 3 main chapters, and I called this the prosperity triad. There's some fun animations. Comes down very simply, and I feel like it really encapsulates the different conversations that we had. Even going all the way back to Breanna, I think it is, that talked about communication this morning. Was it right, Breanna? Yes. So we have the emotional intelligence piece. The question of, how do I know if I'm stressed out? You know, Gerry has some great pieces there. Like, listen to the tension in your body. Listen to, what's going on in your mind. When you find you can't sleep. When you find that you're breathing shallow. When you're finding that you're getting these flashbacks of different things coming through. Passive aggressive, the road rage, all of this. We're going to dive into that a little bit more. The effective communication. Breanna talked about this. There's no surprise. Since the 60s, they've been harping on us that effective leaders are emotionally intelligent leaders, that effective leaders are leaders that effectively communicate, but we're not often taught much about how to do all of these things. And the last thing is the self-restoration, which is what Gerry and I are now really passionate about spreading the message about. How do we restore ourselves when we see that we're kind of going down that little spiky line? And what I'm going to talk about is how actually some of these technologies can help with this. There's an interesting thing. When I came back, I opened up a wellness center. I became a bit of a business person. I had 21 staff at one point in time. And there's this dichotomy where it's like technology and mental health or wellness, and they have to be in 2 different parts of our society. But we can use these things because our world has them. So let's use them and actually benefit us. So I'm going to talk first about emotional intelligence briefly. And what does emotional intelligence mean to us, other than what's on the screen here? Give me a word. Yell at a word. Sympathy? Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Regulation.
One more time. Regulation. Oh, yeah, regulation for sure. Anything else? Understanding others. Yeah, all of this gets encapsulated, and it could be broken down simply to the self and the social, with self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management. So I'm going to talk about 2 of these here, and I'm actually I'm going to need a volunteer. This will not be happening, but I'm going to need a volunteer to help me to actually come up on stage here. Who's going to be my volunteer? Yeah, give them a round of applause. Leslie. Hi, Leslie. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
So, Leslie, how do you feel? Or do we have that other microphone, actually? Give Nicole a round of applause. Running around with the microphone. Thanks, Nicole. That's for you.
Thank you.
Okay, Leslie, how does it feel to be up here in front of everybody, just starting off?
Fine.
Fine.
Yep.
Do you publicly speak? Is this something that you do?
On occasion.
Okay. Some of you know Leslie? Yeah? Was anyone surprised that Leslie was the one that volunteered to come up here? No. Okay. Interesting. So, Leslie, I'm just going to ask you some questions about yourself.
Sure.
And you just answer to the best of your ability. There's no wrong answer.
Sure.
Okay. What is your favorite color?
Purple.
Purple. What is your favorite fruit?
Fruit. Passion fruit.
Passion fruit. Okay. What is your favorite topping on a pizza?
Mushrooms.
Mushrooms. Okay. One more. What is your favorite song?
Right now it's a Pink song, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
Okay, that's fine if you don't remember the name.
Pink is the artist, though.
Pink is the artist. Yes. Okay. Could you just like sing some of it for us?
No. I married a musician. I don't sing.
All right. That's fantastic. Just a question. So when I asked you to think of a song, did you know right away what you were going to go to?
No.
What brought Pink into your mind?
It's a song about her father who she lost, so it resonates with me.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you being able to tap into that. And when I asked you to sing it, you were very quick to say no.
Mm-mm. Nobody needs that.
Okay. Everyone, can we please give Leslie a big round of applause? Thank you. So that was to explore a couple aspects here. There was the self-awareness. Leslie came up here and I asked Leslie some simple questions, how she felt about her experience being up here, some simple questions about color, food, all of that. Leslie did a fantastic job answering those things. And even when I asked Leslie to sing, did a fantastic job setting a boundary there. Now, what I was looking at was the social awareness component. So right away, when I ask for a volunteer, there's going to be basically one or two types of people that are going to come up here. That's going to be those like me that just love the spotlight and will come up, or those that recognize that it's important to challenge the things that we find difficult. And then there's a spectrum that kind of falls in between there. So it told me that if I'm starting to cluster this, that Leslie falls under one of these two categories. So now Leslie came up here. And when I was watching, Leslie came up very directly and first stood in the front half of the stage. And then noticed that I was kind of a little bit further back. And when Leslie noticed that they were in the front half alone, they then decided to take a step back. So that's going to also inform some aspects of myself of where hierarchically Leslie's going to be positioning themselves compared to me and where she feels that she has importance in this room. When I started asking the easy questions, Leslie wasn't super concerned about all of you, which was really interesting to see. Leslie was facing me more, staying again back further to the stage, and was having a conversation. Leslie's left hand was towards the back of her, keeping her posture nice and straight, which would suggest that there is some degree of public speaking training or recognition that kind of comes from this, recognizing that how I stand makes a difference in the way people perceive me. There's also a self-soothing thing that can happen here. When I take my hand and put it anywhere on my body, I'm self-soothing myself in some way, shape, or form. We often have these false messages that if I like cross my arms, that I'm like cold or I'm, not open to your suggestions. But more often than not, with the clusters again, this is going to say some form of self-soothing, that it's some degree of discomfort, and I know how to deal with it. So this is what I'm seeing with this, that yes, I'm up here, but I'm good with that. Then I asked some easy questions, no problem. Feeling confident. There was actually a little bit of like a sway with the foot as Leslie started recognizing I'm in the swing of things. These are easy questions. I can answer these all day. I asked the question about the song, and I look for something here. Is Leslie actually thinking about a song that Leslie likes, or is Leslie thinking about a song that is going to position her better in all of your minds? If Leslie's song was an embarrassing song, would Leslie actually say it? And I'm watching to see what's happening with Leslie's eyes as she's thinking about her song. Is she glancing up at all of you at any point in time? Is she keeping it inside? She did a very good job, and I can see that she was tapping inward as she was asking herself that question. So that was very prevalent to me, which is why I asked where that song came from. I don't typically ask that up on stage. And then when I asked to sing it, I will often find that there's a couple different ways people can respond because of our auto-setting defense mechanisms. Maybe Leslie would have sung. And maybe it would have been with the defense of humor, right? We see this all the time. Maybe Leslie would have come forward and just started like rocking that song, and we would have all laughed, and Leslie would have had the opportunity to defend this very vulnerable part of herself through layers of humor. This is one of the reasons why we do this. Another way to defend those parts of ourselves is to just say no, which is what Leslie did. So it also tells me that Leslie's quite good at setting clear boundaries, and it didn't feel mean. It didn't feel like she was mad at me for asking it, knowing that I should not be mad at her for her saying no. So thank you very much, Leslie, for giving me all of that kind of stuff. But again, we don't take that in the owner's manual or when we're just on the automatic setting. I started doing lots of people watching. To be a hypnotherapist, you have to do lots of people watching. You have to watch for the very subtle aspects that is telegraphing to you what's happening inside of a person's mind. So that if I start to make eye contact with someone, and then I'm going to watch the way that they're breathing, and as I watch the way that they're breathing, I will cue certain things at certain times. I'm not going to do anything here. Yeah, I could tell that you started. It's fine. I have fun with this. So there's different ways that we learn and we train ourselves to watch. That's to say that on the emotional intelligence side of things, it is huge to dive into that field. It's huge. And yet, if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be a boss, right? Like I loved the effective communication stories around like, recognizing that maybe I wasn't providing the best amount of information for them. When I had my ambiguity, I just left it so open. Now, we can go in that point of blaming, but it's the emotional intelligence that allows us to sit back, reflect on our own contribution to the interactions that we have, and then we can adapt from there because we also have to have that self-management component as well. So that's, again, very, very brief overview on the emotional intelligence and the importance of it. Effective communication, I'm going to just breeze through this because Breanna did an amazing job, and I know some of you weren't here earlier, but I think it's going to be posted or something. Effective communication, again, I run entire multi-day series on this. Super, super important. The way that we connect with people. I have a whole Bravely acronym about being present with someone and how we connect and the way we use our body and the way we use our tone and the way we use the pacing of our voice. And friends, it's so powerful. If I just slow down and get quiet, I could be saying nonsense. It is true, but you're going to lean in. And then if I want to get you excited, I can bring energy into this. And then you're going to maybe wake up a little bit. Or if you were starting to doze off, that's a time for you to stop. You know who you are. No, I'm kidding. The effect of the way we communicate, it's so, so powerful. And again, for people in your line of work, this is the nuanced stuff, like Peter was talking about, that AI doesn't get. Someone sent me synesthesia. I don't know. Does anyone know synesthesia? Someone sent me a synesthesia video recently, and it was so irksome to me because it was like flat talk the whole way, weird emotions on the face. There's still plenty that can go there, but right now we have some room there. So effective communication, this is fun. I asked AI, generate a picture that would be a conflict between a homeowner and a landscaper. That was my prompt, and it gave me a landscaper making a garden in a swimming pool. It filled in all of that. So I don't know who's searching what to do when I put a garden in someone's swimming pool or whatever information it's tapping into. But anyway, effective communication. I'm going to break it down into a very, very super quick 3x3 rule. 3 big questions to ask. Why am I communicating? Okay, you can use this at work. You can use this with your spouse. Am I just venting? Am I wanting anything from this? Why am I actually entering into the conversations I'm having? Ask yourself that question before you even go into it, because it's going to affect the way that you're interacting with the person. Who am I communicating to? I do DISC assessments. I'm trained with Myers-Briggs. I've done all of those different things with different companies. The concept here is that we're all different people. We're different people, so we need to adapt and communicate differently to the different people we're communicating to. One of the biggest pieces of BS that we've been told about empathy is that we want to put ourselves in the shoes of other people. Well, I don't mind being up on stage here. So if I was like, hey, I gotta go. Can you just take this for a moment? This might be a very different experience for them than it would be for me. If someone just ran up and gave me the microphone, I'd be like, oh, nice. I get some extra airtime. And I would go up. If I was putting myself in Katie's shoes, that would be no problem for me. But I have to keep Katie in her own shoes and imagine what that experience might be like for Katie, which may be a different thing. I don't know. Maybe you love the stage. You didn't volunteer when I asked for a volunteer, but it's fine. So who am I communicating to? And then what do I want out of this conversation? So in your lines of work, right? What do I want when I'm going? Am I trying to land a contract? Am I trying to get a hard message across to an employee. Like, what do I actually want? Well, if I'm communicating to an employee, what I want is an understanding maybe in that situation. So what do you actually want to get out of it? Because we can get so derailed in our conversation, and somehow we all of a sudden we're in some sort of a debate and we didn't even understand where it started in the first place. All of that. Know where you're going, create a roadmap, and that creates three main things. Field, by the way, is a psychological term. The field in psychology is the space where my authentic self meets Katie's authentic self meets the environment that we're in. So be aware of the field that we're in, adapt to it, speak to be understood, which, again, like Breanna was saying, might mean I have to portray the message in a different way for Breanna as I do for Katie, as I do for, I don't know, other people whose names I don't know yet. You have to understand that we all understand differently, and listen to also understand. So speak to be understood, listen to understand. Go in with those simple things. Instantly your communication is going to get better because you're just thinking about it in advance. So often we don't think about the conversations that we're going to have. Start anywhere and it's probably going to improve. Okay, effective communication. That brings us to self-restoration. I started calling wellness self-restoration because I did a lot of work with police and firefighters. And when I used to go in and say words like mindfulness and meditation, they would bully me, and it wasn't nice. So I changed it to self-restoration because that sounds cooler. I don't know. But it really emphasizes the restoration component to this. And again, if we go back to my monastic living, 8 hours a day meditating, like I would tell you at that point in my life, my mental health side of things were fantastic, but I had no money. I had no future savings. I had no plan for what the rest of my life was going to be. So there were things that were missing in the bigger scale of success. And even since I've started doing business coaching, I've worked with people who have great family life, great aspects of their mental health, but again, their businesses are failing and they have a hard time with that success. I've also worked with people, I can't mention names, but I worked with someone recently who makes multiple $1 million in a year, and they are miserable. They are miserable. Their family they have a lot of conflict within their family, and they don't feel like they're successful. We need to talk about how we create balance with all of this, and that's what we're going to start to kind of talk about here. And now Gerry talked a little bit about this. I'm going to create a bit of an experience, I hope, with this, about again, the different states of the mind. I am going to use some terminology. I'm going to use the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So this is our fight-flight response. How many people have heard of the fight-flight response? Amazing. How many people have heard of the rest and restore response? A couple of you. They live on the same plane, or at least they should. This is the way that the human physiology is supposed to work. We create stress experiences, we metabolize those neurotransmitters and those stress hormones, and then we rest and restore so that we can go back at it. So I want you to imagine now. We're going to do a little visualization here. It's a funny thing. When I actually did my hypnotherapy training, they never taught us to snap, but there's like this idea that you think, oh, what is that going to mean? That's some social management. So imagine you are on the safari. Plains of Africa, right? You got like the cracked, dry earth. There's the heat waves that you can kind of see in the air. And I want you to imagine that there's an antelope drinking from this watering hole. And all of a sudden, out of the tall grass beside the watering hole, a lion jumps out of the grass, and the lion chases after the antelope, and the antelope is going to kick and buck and scream, and is going to do everything that the antelope has to do to survive, and it does. Whew. This isn't a Disney story where the mother dies in the first 5 minutes. The antelope survives. And then what is the antelope going to do? What would the antelope do? So it did everything it had to. It kicked, it screamed, it fought its way through that experience. What would an antelope do? Go hide, rest. Yes, the antelope is going to go find a shady spot somewhere, and it's going to take a nap. And it's going to then recover, and it's going to go drink back at that watering hole the next day. I just heard stupid animal. Where else is it going to get water from? There's lions in the world. So we have to face it sometimes. So That's what an antelope would do. Now I want you to imagine you at that watering hole. So you're lapping it up and a lion comes out and it attacks you. Most likely, whether you know it or not, you would be able to tap into that same part of your brain. You would kick, you would gouge, you would pull your shoe off or whatever and try to hit it. You would do what you had to survive. Then what would you do? What? Keep running. Just don't stop running. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Kill every lion that there is. You know what? These things would go through our mind. Absolutely. I did this talk at a university recently, and one of the people very honestly was like, I'd post on social media. And I could just imagine this just like, hey there fam, Jason here. Got attacked by another lion again. OMG my life. So, I don't know what kids talk like. I have a 13-year-old. I don't understand a word she's saying. But this is what we do, right? We create stories. We create narratives. And all of a sudden we start seeing these little phantom lions everywhere. We see, even though, just for that little bit, I brought this lion here. We see these phantom lions everywhere. And then, maybe it's not a lion for us. Maybe it's those bills at the end of the month. Maybe it's that client that's just so hard to work with. Maybe it's that employee that you have that review coming up and you're just dreading the fact that you have to talk to them even. And those are the things that replay in our mind when we're trying to sleep. Or maybe we fall asleep, but we wake up at like 3 a.m. and then that just jumps in there. And because we keep replaying this, it's a really interesting thing with our mind. It doesn't understand the difference between the lion actually in the room with us and the phantom lions that we are just projecting on a screen in our mind. We have to, again, take it off the auto mode and tell our brain when it's a real lion and when it's just a movie. And more often than not, it's really interesting. Again, I've studied mindfulness and meditation extensively. And there's often this idea that mindfulness is associated with happiness and that they go hand in hand. And that's not true. But what's interesting is there is a correlation, which means they're connected because mindfulness means being in the present moment. Let's take this moment right now. Right now, this is pretty incredible. You are all under a pretty safe roof. Right? You're being fed food. You have people around you who have wealth of knowledge and experience. Like, this is a pretty incredible situation that you're in. And if we can actually just tap into what this moment is, that would bring a lot of happiness for many of us. But there's these voices, these phantom lions that start playing and about the stuff that we have to do when we get back and the things that we're not doing right now. And the list of things that pile up and pile up and pile up. So even when we have these opportunities to be in pretty awesome situations, we don't live them. We're not living those. So I challenge you to do better, which means when you're in that doing mode, instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm so tired, I wish I was resting, jump in, do what you have to, be efficient with that doing. But when you get the opportunity to be in pretty cool places, put down all those phantom lions. Recognize that this is just a little plushy thing or it's just a screen that's playing in our mind and be in those moments. So how do we actually put down the weight? When I say the weight, I have this little brain here. I like bringing props. When I squeeze it, its eyeballs come out. That's just a fun thing. So I have this little brain here. This thing weighs about 5 grams, very light. And yet if I were to hold this out and I never put it down, eventually my arm would feel exhausted. This tiny, tiny little thing, if I just hold it up and hold it up and hold it up, eventually my arm would just give out and it would basically fall off, or that's how it would feel. This is the same thing with the things that we are holding on to. If we don't feel, and this comes down to trust a lot of times, how many people here have at least one coworker? And we have no solopreneurs in the room? Or maybe multiple coworkers? Yes? Okay, we're going to see how much we trust those people. Because what happens is, this isn't that heavy, but if I don't trust the people around me to pass this off at any point in time, then nobody can hold it but me. And these are the things that actually end up crippling us. It's the things that we do not feel like anybody else can hold for us. So we have to keep holding them up, and we keep holding them up, and we keep holding them up. And the thing is, oftentimes, it's not just this. We have this, and and we have these, and we have all the many other things that we pile in our hands until, again, our arm just drops. So we either need to find people we trust, which takes time, and it needs to be proven that we can trust them. Or we can also start, or maybe not or, but and, we can also start using some of the systems to put those things down, or maybe pick up some of the weights that we're holding on to. And this is where we get into some of these technologies, right? There's some incredible stuff out there right now. So I am a solopreneur. I have one virtual assistant. The rest of everything that I do now for my speaking career is on me. That means I have to keep up with my association as well, and I'm on the CLT team for my association. I have my marketing that I have to do. I have to write proposals. I have to book my own flights. I have to do all of this on my own. And when I'm out working, I'm not doing all the rest of the stuff, and I'm not getting those proposals and the contracts and the invoices and all of that. And those would be those things that would just weigh so heavily. And you try to do what you can at the airport. There was one week in the summer last year where I was in 6 provinces in 6 days, and I'm trying to carry things, and I'm exhausted. And the whole time, if I let my marketing go down, I'm not getting any more gigs. I eventually decided to not be one of those laggards, or however Peter put it, and adopt some of these systems. And in less than 60 minutes, using a combination of ChatGPT, Canva, and Later is the posting agent I use, I was able to post 3 posts a week on all of my social media platforms for the entire year in less than 60 minutes. So like I was here yesterday and I started getting notifications on my watch saying people are liking my posts. And I'd completely forgot, well, I know it happens, but I didn't even remember which one it was. But you, again, like Peter said, you have to check this stuff. So I wrote a book last year called The Prosperity Triad, and I was able to upload my entire book into ChatGPT and quickly said, okay, pull out all of my best one-liners, my best quotes, and the good to knows for people in these different industries. That was my prompt. It gave me this long list. I had to read them, and there were hallucinations in there. There was stuff in there that I did not say at any point in time in my book, but it was there. I could go through it. I was able to take those, get it to communicate to Canva, say create a batch posting. It took these pictures of mine and put in this whole thing. Very quickly, it was able to do something that I dread doing. Not to mention the way that anyone that messages me through my website automatically goes into my CRM, and then that gets automatically emailed out to different people and all this. Like these systems now, we can use them to actually give us some space. So that I can trust that these things are doing stuff. So when I'm with my family, when I'm out working and doing other things, when I'm just in nature, that I know that there's some things that are being taken care of, that I can trust it with certain aspects. But we could also just use technology and then create more space, and then we just doom scroll on Instagram and social media and all of this. You have to then be the one that does the right stuff with the time that it creates for you. If you just fill it with more doing and doing and doing, this stuff can actually just accelerate your road to burnout. You have to find the balance with all of this. And I'm going to do a little self-disclosure. I don't often talk about this when I'm speaking. I have a neurodiversity, so I actually have a reading disorder. I cannot read more than a paragraph at a time without my brain completely just offloading what I just read. My working memory is in the 10th percentile. And so because of that, I actually was okay in the architectural world because it was mostly project-based. But the idea of going back to university to study psychology, to do all this kind of stuff, would have never happened. But then technology caught up. This is one of the things that these different systems, the technology can do for us, is it can level the playing field. I use speech to text, text to speech. I have everything read. I use the navigation tool within my laptop. And now I'm on my 2nd book, which I never thought I would have ever been able to write a book given my disability. And now I'm on my 2nd book. I'm writing papers for University Weekly. I have publications in different magazines because I have these technologies that can take up some of the weight that I have a hard time with. And this is one of the pieces too, friends. We also have technologies that if we are new to some of the care work that Gerry was talking about, that I'm talking about, there are some technologies that can help us with that too. There's things like insight timers. There's heaps of meditations and things on there. Headspace, Calm. You know, sometimes it's hard without systems to find ways to relax. We need to do our way into our being sometimes. And that's okay. Find anything. One of the things when I work with people now to help them find ways to balance their doing and their being is I'll often talk about not trying to add more into your schedule, because nobody here is going to be able to find time to meditate for 8 hours, probably not even an hour a day. Take the things that you're already doing. This is one of my challenges for you. Take the things you're already doing. If you are cooking, just be with your cooking. Smell the smells in the kitchen. Like actually taste your food and still, instead of just shoving stuff in your faces all the time. Not like you, I wasn't watching you at lunch or anything, but the society in general, right? We do that. All of a sudden we didn't realize that the whole bag of chips is gone or something. Be with it. I was working with this firefighter once, and he told me the story. He came back after a session. He told me this story. Him and his kids, they went to McDonald's. He's like, Jason, I just had the most amazing quarter pounder with cheese. I was like, go on, tell me more. He's like, well, there we were in McDonald's, and I was remembering what you were saying about, being present, and we did this whole mindful eating exercise, and so I bit down into the burger, and I could feel how, like, my teeth went through the texture of the bread, and then I had this burst of flavor when it hit the tomato, and then the zestiness of the mustard, and then the patty, and I opened my eyes, and my kids were looking at me like I was crazy, but it was the most amazing quarter pounder with cheese that I'd ever had, and that was our last session. I was like, okay, you are ready, whatever those moments are, right? But these experiences, we have moments every day. Anytime you catch yourself thinking or saying anything like wasting time, killing time, passing time, replace that with embracing time. Notice if you're at a restaurant and say it's you and a partner or you and a friend, and they get up to go to the washroom, what's the first thing we do? We grab our phone. What are we doing on our phone? We'll pull LinkedIn up again and we'll just do another, nothing new there. Oh, there's a notification. Oh yeah, John's posting again. Why? Why are we so opposed to being in the moment? It's mind-blowing. And yet when we start to do that more, we can be in active rest. You could be in that restaurant space and actually get into that parasympathetic nervous system, metabolize those stress hormones, and you can find moments of rest throughout your day wherever you are. So we got to find this balance, friends, between the way that we do and the way that we be. And it's by being and doing more fully and more efficiently. So at the beginning, I talked about how tech can help your business and your mind, right? We had Peter. I won't even pretend to know as much about AI or anything as what Peter was talking about. Maybe I'll pretend, I don't know. But I don't. But there's so many ways that we know it can help us. The phone, internet, someone mentioned, cell phone, all of this stuff. Yes. And we see it in our young people today, right? It can be also a huge trap. A huge trap. And there's people whose job it is to trap you, by the way, right? The social engineers, the attention engineers, the ones who will do the survey to see that, oh yeah, if we make the number thing in the corner of the app red, then people are going to click on it much more likely than if we make it white. They want you to click through. That's how they make money. When they have little ads that they sell and all this, getting you to click through. So just think about that. Whenever you find yourself in that trap, just think, oh, somebody just beat you. They just hijacked your brain. And if that's what it takes to get you to stop the doom scrolling, use that. I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine, because ultimately, yes, these things can help your mind, but it comes down to you. So I was coaching this person. He had a painting business, and he had this dream of getting, a fleet of vehicles on the road and not ever having to touch a brush again. He was worried about arthritis. It was a big thing of his. So we were working together, and he was a great people person. And yet something would always happen. It was a cycle with his business. He would get to a point where he would come across a stumbling block, which in business, there are always stumbling blocks. He would, he hired someone, and then they just couldn't show up to work one day, and he got nervous that he wouldn't get done the job in time. And anything that it would just kind of trigger his anxiety, he would then start spiraling, and then he wouldn't sleep. And then if he's not sleeping, he's not showing up to quote the job good anymore. And so he shows up and he's not his best self. He didn't get that job. Now he has less work in the calendar. And so he's getting more stressed out. Now he lets that person go because it'd just be easier if it was just me and my paintbrush. And so we go back to just him. This cycle went on for 8 years with his mental health going up and down, his business going up and down. 8 years, he never got to actuate his dream. And then we started working together, like, okay, we need to break this cycle. How do we break this cycle? He started working with me. He ended up finding AI. He learned how to use ChatGPT. He was a handshake deal person. We found out that most of his anxiety came because of the ambiguity. Again, in the communication, like Breanna was saying, it was the systems he didn't have in place. He started using the technology to help him with his systems, and that bridged just one of those crashes of his anxiety. He then ended up getting a couple more people. There were some stumbling blocks there, but now he had contracts to support him. Again, he had systems in place. After that, he joined this big painting exclusive coaching program. And in that first year, he doubled his revenue. He got he's got another vehicle on the road. After that, he expanded even further. And now it wouldn't be so bad if he had a little bit of a blip in his mental health because he had other people selling for him. After 3 years, he now has, in different cities, fleets of vehicles. He's 5 times his revenue from when it was just him and one other person. And he just needed to find some systems to help him get through both his mental health time and the issues he was having in his business. If I ask him today what was one of the big turning points as well, this is one of the things he didn't tell me in the beginning, is he also started working with a therapist. Whenever I do business coaching, whether it's with small businesses or I've worked with some of the largest utility companies in Canada, it always comes down to the same thing. After about 3 sessions, sure, maybe we're talking about effective communication, we're talking about systems. It comes down to people. It comes down to that you have to do the rest component. CNLA has put on an amazing program here. There's people here that have all the answers that you need to just make your business skyrocket. There's amazing networking opportunities. There was some great discussions in the morning. There was great speakers. I'm not trying to make myself. There was great speakers in the afternoon. But if you don't do anything with any of this stuff that we're telling you or any of the opportunities that you have here, I'm sorry to say that's on you. I've seen it so many times with different associations I've been in, with people I've coached. You have to take the next step. Your mental health is on you. You can outsource so much to these different systems. You can outsource everything that you cannot, if you're not the only one that can deal with it, outsource it. But the things that you can't outsource is your health, it's your personal connections, and it's those deeper conversations. And that's where we need to be putting our attention. Again, I know I'm just repeating things that Gerry said, that Breanna said this morning, that Peter was talking about. But I don't know how many times, sometimes I heard the lucky number is 7, that sometimes we have to hear something 7 times before it actually sinks in. So I don't know, I've probably said it more than that now, but do something. Use the energy that came from this right now. I was talking to, who was I talking to at lunch? I was talking to Steve at lunch. Steve was like, oh yeah, the things that you can't control are endless, but you know what you can control? Having a nice, neat place for all of your tools. And it's like, yes, Steve, I love this, right? This idea, what can I control? Steve can control having a nice, clean shop. That's amazing. He also was talking about, right now, because our fleets are not on the road, this is the time to do maintenance. And there'll be times where the mechanic will say, well, you don't actually need to have that oil change for another 2,000 kilometers or something. He's like, yeah, but in 2,000 kilometers, that's when we're in this month, and that's when things are busy. Just change the oil now. Right? And I don't know if Steve knew that, he just got put on this pedestal of gurus and teachers in my life. But it's so powerful, right? When you have those opportunities, when the fleet's not on the road, change the oil. Take care of it because things are going to get busier. And you need to really embrace those doing moments to recharge your batteries. Now, we talked about having Q&A sessions and everything. I am going to put up this slide because I know I covered a lot of different stuff. So anyone who wants to can either just reach out to me or scan this QR code. You can get a free e-copy of my book. I'm happy to share that with you. And if there's anything that I talked about that maybe is not answered in this, reach out. I love having conversations. I will open it up to questions before we kind of close anything. Is there anything that's burning on your minds right now? And I know that I'm standing in your way of wine. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned 3 key actions, and one of those.
Did everyone hear that? What do we do when we are in a communication position with the worst listener of all time? Can we relate to that? Anyone? A couple of us? So here's the thing. We cannot control what other people are doing. Some of those other questions of like, why are we having this dialogue is really important. You can't force people to be better communicators at times. You can handle what your part is in that relationship. And I often talk about agreements rather than expectations. So instead of me going in and having an expectation of the way that our conversation is going to go, I may have, if you're an employee of mine, there might be an agreement that, look, we're in this meeting and you need to show up. So that means if you're going to be here, I don't know why I'm choosing you, but you need to put your cell phone down, right? In certain relationship dynamics, we'll have agreements. We take out the, aspects of assumption by making the agreements, but that's what that is. When we're having more personal conversation, someone's not listening, you really have to ask what the dynamic is of the relationship. What is your feeling of what this conversation was going to be? Do they know that this conversation was going to be, so one of my models is communicate bravely. Do they know that it's going to be a brave conversation that they're getting into? And sometimes we need to say, so this is actually, I wanted to have this conversation. I was wondering if you can put your phone down because I really want your attention on this one. And maybe we have to be explicit with some of these things. And if they're not there, then we really have to ask ourselves, like, what? Because if, again, I have a 13-year-old at home. And if she's just not in the mode of listening, then if I just, Aveline, that just makes her go, like, her eyes go even glossier, right? So you can do so much, but it's so dependent on the relationship, what kind of conversation. And don't be afraid to say, like, this is, when I explained how it was when we were doing Leslie. I know, right? When I was so attentive to the body language, when Leslie was coming up, for me to point out some of that stuff in my conversations, I'll say, so this is how what you're doing makes me feel right now. And I don't want to engage in this conversation, but I feel like this aspect maybe is important to us to have. So when you're ready to have a more in-depth conversation, you let me know. Or you don't know what's sometimes going on in people's minds as well. Any other questions? Yes.
Gerry had mentioned it earlier, and it's something I think about where you got the feeling brain and the thinking brain, right? And for the example of when you're trying to talk to somebody that's just not listening, right? Some of us will keep repeating ourselves and that emotion starts to build up, right? What advice would you have to people of how in those moments you flip that brain from that feeling to that thinking to save that energy? Because that's one of those things I look at these days is how do you save that energy before you get to that burnout state? So in those moments, what do you tell people of how to flip out of those and into something else?
Awesome question. Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise. For the next 30 seconds, nobody scratch anywhere on your body. Cool? Okay, now I want you to imagine that this room right now is actually filled with mosquitoes. And you can actually hear that sound buzzing around you. You hear it buzzing. You can almost hear it go near one ear, over to the other ear. Or maybe for you, it's not mosquitoes. Maybe there's a spider crawling on your arm right now. Maybe it's, okay. So, does anyone here feel an itch or scratch anywhere on your person? Okay, some of you. If you're one of those people that don't, just focus on one part of your skin. Focus on one part of your skin so acutely, almost as if you can imagine that the skin cells are building up and building up. And all that they want is for you to scratch them off right now. Okay, so for some of you might be feeling an itch right now. I want you to notice the sensation of that itch. Notice the sensation of the itch. You scratched. I said don't scratch. Notice the sensation of the itch. Now make a conscious choice to scratch that itch. And if it is going to benefit you to scratch that itch, you may scratch said itch now. What you experienced right now is you interrupted a cycle. Again, we have that little auto setting. These ruminating thoughts, I believe that we as human beings are at a crossroad of evolution. We have the ability, unlike any other animal, to tap back into the past, to project into the future. And what this does is without us learning how to control that, it just goes off on its own because we have so much stimulus in our world that it's going haywire. So there's a part of our brain, which is the left prefrontal cortex. And the left prefrontal cortex is the control center of our mind that allows us to take control of those parts of our brain and allows us to consciously choose which one we are operating out of. So there's certain exercises that we can do, including the resist the itch exercise you just did, that is like putting in reps to that part of the brain. So it's any time that you enter into a response state rather than a reaction state. And the way that we do that is do things differently. Just break habits that don't serve you or that you can explore with. When you brush your teeth tonight, brush with your opposite hand. When you comb your hair, comb with your opposite hand. Tie your shoelaces in a different way. Just challenge your automatic pilot, and it gives you the ability to challenge some of the other programs as well. It's a beautiful byproduct of that. And this is the same part of your brain that when you're trying to sleep and the brain's going, that you can actually just tell it, now's the time to sleep. Then your mind goes quiet and you will fall asleep. That is very possible, but we have to train those parts of the brain. It's all muscles. You got to strengthen those neural pathways. So try those little exercises where you're challenging, cross your fingers and then cross them in an opposite way, little bits of discomfort. You will rebuild gray matter. It helps with potential for Alzheimer's and dementia. There's all kinds of interesting research that talks about these brain challenges and exercises we can do. Any other questions? Awesome. I'll leave you with this, friends. I said it before. You have a network that's coming up tonight, a great networking opportunity. Some of you are getting awards, which is really exciting. One of the best advice that I got at associations is, yes, this is a great place to get content, but really it's a great place to get connections. Challenge yourself. Again, those things that make you a little uncomfortable. You may be finding that you're talking to the same people over and over again. Meet somebody new, make a good connection. All the answers you need are somewhere in this room. Go find them and really use the stuff that you have here. And I'm so grateful for the whole team for having me out. Thank you so much. Thanks, Joe. You want this? You want that?
I'll take this.
Okay,
that's
that's
fine. Don't go too far. We've also got a CNLA mug for you. Fill that full of your favorite beverage later. Jason, Peter, Gerry, thank you. The wisdom and the insight that you've shared with us this afternoon, I feel like it's exactly what we needed for sitting in a board meeting this morning. For those of you that were at the Emerging Leaders event this morning, capping it off with an afternoon session like this, we're all very grateful. Thank you for being here this afternoon.